I'm John Batchelor. Malcolm Hoenlein, Conference of Presidents is here. We're back to the Palestinians. We welcome Adam Kredo, a senior writer for the Washington Free Beacon. Adam, a very good evening to you. The $4 billion, Malcolm tells me that Mahmoud Abbas has said no. I think he said no, right, Malcolm? He said no.
He said, no, we'll take the money, but we're not giving you anything.
Yeah, we'll take the money, but we won't give you anything. Malcolm, continue, please, about the Palestinians.
Well, one of the problems that we've seen all along, and the people who did Oslo admitted, was they didn't take incitement seriously enough. And I remember Abbas standing next to President Obama, who raised this issue, and he said, there is no incitement. Now, you cite a very important case of his refusal to fire an official who continued to honor a terrorist who praised the murder of a Jewish Israeli who was standing at a bus stop, a father of five, and was murdered. And while they then take off the picture, they take no step. And then the appointment of Hussein Fayyad, who was one of those who carried out the Coastal Road massacre, which killed 38 people, supposedly appointed now as an aide to Fatah, to Abbas. How do we ever get some progress in peace if this is the way Abbas is going to continue to behave?
Well, look, you bring up a very important point, the fact that in meetings with Western officials, Abbas always discusses incitement and says that we do not do this. But on the other hand, if you're looking at what actually happens, Abbas is at ceremonies, his officials are at ceremonies, regularly naming streets after terrorists. Or in the case of his former advisor, who actually heads the Palestinian Council for NGO Affairs, is dealing with nonprofits, a lot of money there. This fellow was caught on film praising, as you said, the Palestinian man who stabbed an Israeli father while he was waiting for a ride at a bus stop. And what he said was really clear-cut in this case. We salute the heroic fighter. This is an encouragement, a call to arms that the Palestinians continue to do. They preach terror on their television channels, they indoctrinate their children, and then in meetings with Western officials make pretend that it's not happening at all. And if you talk about the peace process, this is one step that really has to stop, I think, in order for the Israelis to take them seriously on this front.
Do the members of Congress, who I know that they have protested this, 70 members wrote also to the Secretary General to bar Iran from chairing this conference on disarmament. But do they really see the significance of this? Do they look at these developments and say, listen, we're not going to throw $4 billion at people who continue to profess the kind of views that they hold?
Well, I think the proof in this case is in the pudding that on the case of Abbas and his advisor, a letter was signed by prominent lawmakers, Ed Royce on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Ted Deutsch, and Brad Sherman as well, and they asked him to fire this official. They were pretty clear in what they were demanding, to get rid of him, that he does not deserve a role in the government, and Abbas has been silent. He said nothing. He easily could have made a statement, but he's not. The fact remains that it seems he does not care. He's willing to accept the aid money, and there's a lot of it on one hand, but on the other hand, really not make any moves to foster peace or stop things like incitement.
Adam, Malcolm tells me that the president has given the Secretary of State this free rein in the Middle East to bring peace. And Malcolm mumbles correctly, there's always a Nobel Peace Prize if it exists. Is that an opportunity for the Palestinians? Do they grin? Oh, good. Here comes another Secretary of State. We'll wine and dine him. It always works. We'll get something out of him. There's no threat.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and it really does seem to be true. In the case of Kerry, we just saw him visit the region, and he made all these same overtures that past secretaries of state have made, past presidents have made, and really what has it got him? It's not gotten him that much. The Palestinians continue on their merry way, promoting terrorism on one hand and taking aid money on the other, while the Israelis continue to deal with terror, continue to deal with threats on all of their borders, and I don't think that situation seems like it's changing anytime soon, especially with all of the other flux and turmoil in the region right now.
Malcolm?
So let's look at some of the other issues that you've written about. We see an IAEA report now coming out, finally telling the truth about what's going on in Syria.
This is the nuclear watchdog at the United Nations Security Council. Please continue, Malcolm.
Do you get a sense that in Washington they're taking these reports seriously? Now they talk about 13,000 centrifuges, 700 new ones being installed. To what degree do we get a sense that legislators, administration, et cetera, are taking these reports now seriously and see it as a basis for some reshaping of U.S. policy?
Well, look, I think that policymakers are reading these reports and seeing the seriousness of them, but these reports come out constantly, and they're always showing progress by Iran on this front, and it's how much information can they take? Where does the overload come in, where it just becomes abstract numbers? These numbers of centrifuges and the level of uranium enrichment that Iran is producing is really quite significant and puts them on track to be able to build and arm a nuclear weapon if they want relatively quickly. Even the president said that it could be within a year or so. So while these reports are giving us evidence and solid proof of what Iran is up to, look, the truth is everybody's known what they're up to for a very long time, and our policy really hasn't evolved past sanctions, and sanctions is working. It's hurting the Iranian economy, but you see statements in the Iranian press constantly. I saw one last week from a top official who said sanctions make us stronger, and they continue to produce weapons, a lot of them domestically made. So the question the policymakers need to ask themselves now are sanctions actually hurting them as much as they could be, and is it stopping the nuclear progress? The evidence seems to indicate that it's not.
One of the things that gets very little attention here at home, and I know you have written about it, are the cases showing the extent of activities in this country. We had a guest on last week who spoke about the extensive, not only Al-Qaeda, but Hezbollah sleeper cells in the United States. Tonight there was an action, a sentencing of an Iranian who wanted to kill the Saudi ambassador in Washington. What is the significance and the apparent lack of interest in this kind of conviction?
Yeah, it's interesting. This did not get as much attention as it should have, but interesting nonetheless. Everybody will likely remember this plot that came to light. An Iranian assassin was working with Mexican drug cartels to assassinate the Saudi Arabian ambassador to the U.S. on American soil, no less, while he was in this country. This fellow was convicted today, sentenced to 25 years in prison after a trial in Manhattan. And this is really one example of a much larger problem. And the State Department actually hit it on the head earlier today in a report that happened to be released as this happened. But what they found, finally, is that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism.
Adam Kredo making very good sense. State Department listening up late at night. Senior writer for the Washington Free Beacon, Malcolm Hoenlein, Conference of Presidents, Major American Jewish Organizations. I'm John Batchelor.